thank you all for coming. My name is Rob Nazzal. I see some of you were here at my talk about culture this morning. This talk is very different. This one gets a little bit more nerdy. That one was a little softer and some of the soft skills. This one is really about business and data analytics. So I hope you enjoy it. Just a little bit about my background. I came into dental through a company called Brontis Technologies, which was the first video-based intraoral scanner, and what became part of 3M's dental division, and became the Lava COS back in 2006. And in that business, I learned a lot about managing customer experience and understanding. I learned a ton about dental. That was my first entree, and had the opportunity to meet over several hundred dental labs who had adopted the lava milling solution. And through all of those experiences, I learned a ton about customer experience and customer engagement and share of wallet, and wanted to over the course of the next several years, I started another company called CAP, Custom Automated Prosthetics, with my partner Bob Cohen. And we had built a milling center, which eventually transitioned into a digital solution provider where we helped over 1,500 dental labs transition into digital manufacturing. And many of you are customers of ours at the time, and then we became part of Henry Schein back in 2016. Through all those experiences, I had always been driven to look at data to be a part of the picture of how we drive a great customer experience, how we keep track of what's going on, and how do we understand what are the next best conversations to have with customers. And so I always had this dream of having a piece of software that could do this, and was always wondering why this never existed. And so I, about 4 years ago, started this company called Icortica, and it's basically designed around this concept, and we have many dental labs who are using this. Today's presentation, I'm going to talk for the first half of it about the concepts behind it, mainly that can be applied to any business, regardless of what software you're using. And then the second half, we'll talk about how Icortica can help you do this. So no matter what, if you're interested in software, then that's great. You'll enjoy all of this. If you are just interested in some of these fundamental concepts around using share of wallet and retention as a lever to grow your business, we'll have quite a bit of that in here as well. Okay? So here's the agenda for today. Number one, we're going to talk about the process of growing efficiently. And in that, kind of the punchline is it's all about retention, cross-sell, and upsell, and giving a great onboarding experience. And then we'll talk about how labs are using Icortica today to grow their businesses. So there are three main levers you can use to grow your business. Does anybody want to take a shot at what they are? No? Okay, you can add new customers, right?
Increase products.
Increase share of wallet, and increase your retention. So when you get those customers, you're always going to lose customers, right? It's not always your fault. Sometimes it is, but there's always going to be some flow of customers coming in and out. So acquiring new customers, keeping more of your customers, and then selling more to your existing customers, okay? Call that generically in business, we refer to that typically as share of wallet, right? How much money is a customer spending across all categories of business, okay? And then how much of that are you getting? What is your share of that customer's wallet? In dental, we like to rhyme, I guess, so we call it share of chair. What are we getting from that dentist, okay? So you think about the different categories that you sell in, and how much of that are you getting. So let's just look at an example. So before we do that, I think many of us have heard that it's much more expensive to acquire a new customer. The energy it takes to have someone who doesn't know you, first of all, get to know you, and then secondly, take the leap to do some business with you at first it's a big amount of energy. There's a getting to know you process. There's a whole connection that needs to be made before they will sort of take that risk to make a change. As humans, actually this is part of the culture talk too, as humans we're resistant to change. And so what is it that's going to get them to trial you? Once they do trial you, then the game is about keeping them. But if you look at the cost of bringing in new customers versus the cost of doing more business with your existing customers, if you look this up, it's hard to say how you actually arrive at these numbers, but all the business experts will say that it costs 5 times more to acquire a new customer than it costs to get more business from an existing customer, okay? That doesn't mean that you should give up on acquiring new customers, because you need to continue to do that. But one of the things that was so remarkable to me, I love to play with data, okay? So if you know me, I'm a complete geek about data, and I wanted to put this in a model to understand what that was, and I thought this was pretty eye-opening, and I wanted to share it with you. So here's an example of a business. It's funny that the do not disturb is actually disturbing my presentation, but so I put this in a model where we have 3 knobs we can turn, okay? So this is a company that is, this is the customer acquisition knob, and we can interact with this. And I'll share a link with you, so if you want to play with this, you can. We have a new customer acquisition knob where we're adding 20 new customers a quarter, okay? So this business is adding 20 new customers a quarter. Customer retention is 85%, and the growth of sales, average sales per customer is 0 in this case, okay? So what do we notice about this chart? The company is growing, and then it levels off, okay? We might say, okay, well, why don't we just acquire more customers, right? That's a very common approach, and I think it's very important to acquire more customers. But if you look at this, as you add more customers, the sales does grow, but what happens? It still levels off. And why is that? Any guesses? Exactly. So our retention is causing, we always get to a point, if we don't fix retention, if retention is a problem, we always get to a point where we don't grow. Like where the number of customers coming in equals the number of customers going out. And you keep pushing harder to add more customers. So you're putting all this energy into this thing that costs more, and you have customers that are leaking out the bottom of your bucket, okay? What if we just left those 20 customers there, so we still have a good flow of new customers coming in? What if we improved retention by just 5%? And then what if we improved the average sales per customer? Let's say you take a portion of your customer base and they're only doing Crown and Bridge with you, and you want to cross-sell over to, I'm going to make an effort to see if I can get a handful of my customers to do implant work with me, or do a handful of my customers to do dentures with me. By moving the needle by 2%, so these are small changes. It's like 5% on retention, 2% on cross-sell action. We now have this much more linear curve, right? So now the investment that you're making in acquiring new customers has a much more dramatic impact on your bottom line in the long term. It's very hard to see this in the long term if you're only looking month to month or quarter to quarter, because you're just seeing what's in front of you. But over the long term, if the retention and the average sales per customer or share of chair is not actively worked on, you're giving up a ton of opportunity. And so that's the whole basis of this. And this chart, for me as someone who logically understood it, I needed to see it in this way to really understand the impact of these very small changes. I mean, we're talking 5% in one place and 2% in another, that make a big difference on the bottom line in the long term. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Okay, we're back. If you wanted to, if you take a picture of this, it should offer you a link to go to the calculator, so you're welcome to. I don't know why there's a dinosaur in the middle of my QR code, but okay. So retention ends up being a very important area to focus on in the business. And that has a lot to do with customer experience. I talked, for those of you who were here this morning, I'm not going to go into the cultural aspect, but that cultural aspect plays a huge role in that customer experience and creating these happy customers who come, stay with you, and keep referring other customers. I really do think of the business as a leaky bucket. So we're pouring water in the top of this bucket. Those are your new customers. These holes in the bottom of the bucket, they're always going to be there. They're customers who will sell their business. They're customers who will make decisions that are outside of your control. And you'll also do some things. No one in this room will do anything to cause a customer to go away, but some people will do that. I think if you are one of those people, maybe things like process management and having ways to capture this information become very helpful for understanding where your most common problems are. I could do a whole talk on this concept of using Pareto charts to understand the problems that are causing your customers to be lost, but who knows what the Pareto rule is? I know you do. Okay. The Pareto rule. So Pareto is a hero of mine. It's such a simple thing. He noticed that in almost anything in the world, that 80% of a factor is caused by 20% of the reasons. So, for example, if you have 100 issues in the laboratory, 100 cases have issues, 80% of them are typically from 20% of the reasons. So, like, typically, your top 3 reasons will take care of most of your problems. The beautiful thing about Pareto is that the chart's always the same shape. The top 3 reasons always 80%. So you hit the first 3, the problems start to drop. You hit the first, then there's a next 3. It's a little bit of whack-a-mole too. So you're not going to ever get to perfection, but you're going to be able to have a process that manages those things. It's very important. These are the things that drive the reduction in those kinds of issues. If a customer has already made the decision to leave you, I see a lot of companies that use down reports. This customer's buying less this month than they did the previous month. At that point in the process, if you're seeing that kind of behavior, first of all, you want to catch it as soon as possible if you can. The sooner you catch it, the better. Ideally, you catch it before that drop is happening. But sometimes, if we don't have process around this, we don't have analytics around it, we're not going to catch it. But there's also, have to be careful about when is the right time to try to get them back, because at some point they've already made the decision, and you have to be, careful about where you invest your time. I actually suffered from an issue like this at Brontis, where we were very focused on the customers that stopped working with us. We put a lot of time and energy into this, and my product manager said, I feel like we're behaving like a bad boyfriend, where we only deal with the customer, we only deal with these situations when we do something wrong, and we're not doing enough to nurture our customers. And so make sure that we're being proactive and keeping that relationship going. So customers that are growing are great examples of people who are probably your fans, people who would give you referrals, and most likely have the appetite to continue to try different products from you. So it's a great place to also look. It's not just about giving flowers. It's also about you do end up getting something in return. Okay, so the top 3 reasons that dental labs lose customers. There's a lot of sub-reasons, there's a lot of things related to this, but number 1 is communication. Okay, and actually I think all of the reasons are related to communication, to be honest, but communication is number 1. All the others kind of stem from this. There's a concept of I call it perceived quality, because nobody makes bad crowns, but there's a perception sometimes that that's one of the challenges about our business here, is that there is no perfectly right answer, and so there is a different perception. So, but quality is definitely an issue that causes customers to go away, especially when there are so many options out there. And then logistics, on-time delivery, right? So you got to be on time with high quality and great communication. By the way, this is not unique to dental labs, right? I mean, like restaurants have this issue too, right? You have quality, on time, and make sure there's good communication in the process. At CAP, it really became clear to me that when you do come across a customer complaint, that there are customers that will silently go away, right? We've all seen that, where they just kind of disappear and we just didn't notice. But there are ones that will make the complaint, and even though it might be a difficult situation to deal with, or it might seem negative, they're actually asking you to keep their business. And I put the word usually in here because I know that there are certain customers that you can never make happy. And in some cases, those are the ones that you maybe are happy that they go somewhere else, right? I mean, I'm not saying, this adage that the customer's always right. But the truth is most customers are always right. Some are just, they're not the right customer for you. So I think this is an important thing to keep in mind as we look at this. My personal view is that when an issue occurs, you actually have an opportunity to bond more with the customer than if nothing happened, right? I'm sure you can all think of an example where you bent over backwards to make something happen. I know you've actually flown a case, had a person fly a case to a customer, right? I mean, that kind of above and beyond thing turns into a story that the customer ends up telling other people. Oh, you got to work with these people. They would do anything to make sure that this works. And that's the kind of thing that I think is an important way to look at this, is that I'm not, when these problems are coming in every day, to look at it as an opportunity to show the customer what you're made of. And I think this is a really important attitude, not only for you as leaders and owners, but also to bring to your team and have them thinking about this that way as well. It's a completely different perspective on the exact same reality, and it can change the way that you're thinking about some of the problems that you're facing today. One of the biggest places where I see leaks in this bucket is in the onboarding process. The onboarding process is that customer taking that first leap with you to do that first case. And in a lot of situations, that's the only case they end up doing with you. And it may not be because anything went wrong. It may be for some of the reasons that we talked about earlier, largely around communication or showing that you care, or just the fact that people are resistant to change. And the only reason that they did that case was because, I don't know if you have, I've seen a lot of people who have an aggressive salesperson who they just want to get off their back and just try it and move on, or a coupon, which may not be the type of customer that you want, that just uses you for the coupon. So the onboarding experience is a very important one. How many people have a written down onboarding experience for your customers? Very good, congratulations. If you don't, I do suggest taking a step back and thinking about that. I do have some tips for what that might look like, or what you can look at here. But before we do that, I like to think about these in the terms of customer acquisition cost. Okay. Customer acquisition cost is really how much did it cost me to get this customer in the first place. So you take the cost of your sales team. A lot of people don't have a sales team. They are themselves a sales team. And but let's say you take that into account. How much of your time is spent trying to acquire new customers, and what's that worth? And then are you spending money on marketing? If you are, what dollars are going into getting new customers? If you are a laboratory that is very good about getting referrals, then these numbers are very low, and congratulations. I think that's the best way to grow. And you divide that by the number of newly acquired customers, all right? So if you do happen to have a salesperson, probably paying them, if you think about how much of their time is assigned to customer acquisition, then you're probably talking about at least $1,000 per new customer, all right? So that can be a big number. You think about how many crowns that takes when you look at the gross margin of a crown and how many crowns you have to sell to make up that cost. You start to really respect the concept of the onboarding process, right? You start to really think about, okay, I need this to stick. It's not to make sure that every single customer sticks, because not every customer is the right one. Not every person who trials you is the right person to be your customer. But in a lot of cases, a little bit of process can go a long way to move that needle for retention. We're just looking for 5% improvement here. The energy it takes to get to case one, this is my terrible way of trying to explain. The energy is very big for step one, but that you can't just stop there to get that first case. The next question is, how do I go from case one to case two? What is blocking us with this customer to go to case two? Is it just that, we didn't talk after case one? Because that's a pretty easy problem to solve. Or is it something went wrong on case one? Or was there some perception that we didn't understand up front? But once you understand those and you get to case two, then the focus becomes, well, how do we get to case three? And notice each of these steps becomes a little bit less. Like as you get someone through the mindset of change, and that becomes a little bit less. Once you get to case 10, you have a customer who is doing business with you. And the idea of moving on to recurring business with that and moving into a phase of loyalty is much more straightforward. But it doesn't end at case one. And I think this is where a lot of us can, with a little bit of process, see some big improvements. Onboarding is a really big opportunity for you to stand out and set the tone for your relationship with a new customer. I also want to caution you away from making an extremely onerous process. I see people who sit down and say, okay, we're gonna have an onboarding process, and you have this 60-step process. Really, you should have 4 touch points over the first 60 days with the customer, 4 or 6, whatever you want it to be. But I'm talking about really lightweight process that lets you keep in touch with this customer and make sure that you are setting the tone with this customer up front. For example, a call just to get the preferences up front would go a very long way on that communication issue that we're talking about as being one of the number one reasons. You can set the tone very early on and establish your interest in making sure that customer is happy. And when you use those words up front, you're opening the door for a conversation, not where they might, let's say something goes wrong. They'd be like, but these people seem really interested in making sure this works. They're gonna take the effort to say, hey, I know you want to make this work. I'm gonna invest a little bit in making sure this works because you've shown me that you want to know what I want. So these kinds of conversations will really, really help on that. Concept of share of chair. This concept is super important. So we, going through retention, then into this idea of how do we increase our share of wallet by 2%? How do we, across the entire customer base? That might mean, 10 customers transition over to buy in a new category from you. That could make a 2% difference on your overall business. Which products are you not getting? A lot of us are able to get, who can easily get sales reports out of your system today? Yeah. How many of those tell you what you're not getting? Right? Most of them don't. Because that's the thing you're not getting. They don't know how to report on what you're not getting. They can tell you what you are getting. So this is a really important way to look at your business, is what is it that I'm not getting from my customer? And how can I prioritize either my marketing efforts, my customer service, or my sales team to be thinking about this and make it really easy for them to understand where those are. So I think most of you probably offer at least 3 out of the 4 of these kind of product categories at a very high level, right? If you have a customer that's just doing Crown and Bridge, how do we think about these other 3 gray boxes here? What are they? Opportunity, right? It's an opportunity for us to get more share of wallet with that customer, because you offer that. You have a customer who already trusts you to do business with you in this category, and here we have other entire areas that we can be doing business together. So how do we do that? So I see two different versions of this in most businesses, and I've been one of these. This one is, does the team have the information that they need? Are they shooting blindfolded, right? A lot of times they pick up the phone or go visit customers and not really understand what's going on with that customer. What's the right conversation to have with that customer based on, their purchase history, their recent customer service issues, and their remake rates, and all these things that they need for context to have the right conversation with the customer. Or are you drowning them in reports? So at CAP, for example, I was guilty of this. I would set up all these business intelligence tools and flood my team with crazy reports that told them everything about the customers. But there was one report about customers who were buying less than they used to. There was another report of customers who had bought a mill but not zirconia. There was another report that said they're buying zirconia but not tools. There's a report for every possible scenario, and you'd have to look through all these reports, but you never see the customer-centric view. You never understand what's going on with this customer. You'd understand these are my biggest opportunities on this cross-sell, these are my biggest opportunities on this cross-sell, but you not understand the customer-centric view, and they were drowning. With that said, they all had a favorite report that they loved to use, and they all had this concept of what I would call a playbook. So there are some people who are really good at cross-selling from one product to another, and others that were much more focused on retention and making sure that they were able to keep those customers. So, we had great growth. Our growth was not linear, it was actually exponential. So these things do work, but they're very hard to do. And I happen to have a degree in computer science, was able to generate a lot of this stuff for my team, and I understood the business. But to be able to access this information can be very difficult, and to make it presentable in a way that these customers your team can understand, it's not an easy task to undertake. Oftentimes if you are someone who's providing these reports to your team, we're often asking our sales people or our customer service people to be analysts. And analysts are, and that's not typically what you hired them for. So if you are giving them lots of reports, they might be spending their time trying to be prepared for a conversation instead of talking to the customers. And they are confused because they're going across multiple different reports. Okay. Now from here, we also have this concept of automated marketing. Who does like email campaigns or any kind of automated marketing? Okay. One of the challenges with this is that most of the tools that we have today are designed to blast out information to an entire customer base. And the idea of having this particular conversation that's appropriate for this particular customer, it's a bit of a challenge because you have a lot of data. You have a lab management system that has all that data in it, and then you have a marketing automation system that's not talking to that system. And there's no brain in between these. So what we end up doing is sending the same message. Hey, we have an implant solution for you. We have crown and bridge solution for you. And they become a single message across the whole customer base, but every customer is at a different phase of their journey with you. I'm fine talking about mistakes that I've made in the past, but we used to do this at CAP. We would send an email about how great 5-axis milling is to our customers who had 3 of our 5-axis mills already. That's a sign that we're not really respecting the attention that we're asking from them. So this is Seth Godin. He's one of my marketing heroes. If you ever want to look him up, he's really someone that I think is really great to follow. He has a wonderful blog called at sethgodin.com, and he gives amazing tips on this concept of permission marketing. So permission marketing is the privilege of delivering anticipated, personal, and relevant messages to the people who actually want to get them. So these are what we're in today, and actually he's had this viewpoint for over 20 years. that the commodity is attention, right? Your customers, your prospects everyone's vying for their attention. And so how can you make sure that you're sending the right message to the right customer at the right time? You have to do that at this point to get their attention, because their attention is very precious and they're paying it to you. And if you're showing up in their inbox, if you're showing up in their text messages, if you're showing up in their social media, it has to be relevant to them. And we need to have tools that will help us give the right message to the right customer. That's both, and that's also in the phone too. I mean, it's in every channel. We have to be respectful to their attention. All right. So that's kind of the setup for how I think about growing a business. And to make this easy for laboratories, I've built a tool called Icortica. And it is designed to be the brain between your sales system, like your lab management system, your marketing automation, and your sales team, to help them all have the right conversation with the right customer at the right time. Keeping and growing your customers is the most efficient way to grow your business. Do we agree now, after seeing that? Okay. Customers definitely want to feel like they know that you know who they are, even as you grow, right? I think the biggest thing is keeping that small lab feel while you scale up. It's an interesting art. It's not an easy thing to do, and part of that is about not just blasting the same message out to everyone. We want people that we have talking to customers spending their time doing what they want to do, what they like to do, what they're good at, and not interpreting data. And that we need to have accountability with our teams. And that if you think about your production process, right, in order to have a good outcome at the end in making a crown or any prosthetic, you have to have a very well-defined process of what you expect to happen at each stage of that process. If you think about your customer journey, the customer experience, there are ways to ensure that you have the exact same type of attitude with your customer experience. How do you turn that more into a process and a methodology rather than just letting whatever happens? So help to guide that journey. Here's a quick demonstration of the metrics page of Icortica. So one of the things that we do is basically bring the data that you already have from your lab management system to life. So you can, I had to do this as a video, I hope it, okay. Up here we've got the sales data at the top, and you can configure these any way you want. Here on the next area, we've got the average sales per customer. This is your share of wallet analysis of how much business you're actually doing with that customer. Across your customer base, and are you starting to have an effect on the average sales per customer? What is your customer acquisition rate? So obviously that matters. We still, as much as I keep saying that the other two are important, this is still a very important thing. So we want to keep an eye on that, especially in the context of retaining those customers. How many customers are active with us? And how are we doing on the onboarding experience? So this red, yellow, green chart right here is telling us how we're doing in onboarding our new customers. And I'll go into more detail about that. At the bottom, this is really the leaky bucket chart. This is showing us, on the whole, how many new customers are coming into the business, which is the green bars. Are we bringing in more customers than we lost, right? And then the red bars are we losing more customers than we brought in? So on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis, you can see how you're doing on the acquisition versus the loss of those customers. On the right-hand side, we actually see we see similar information, but what the blue is showing you is customers who came back. So you lost those customers. The blue is showing you customers who came back. The orange is showing you customers who left but later came back. This is a very interesting category of customers. Yes?
I don't know if it's question and answer time, but I wanted to...
Please,
yeah.
We'll
get to it later, but I'm really interested in the definitions behind those buckets.
Okay.
Of how you define a new customer, a lost customer, and whether they're, at risk or... The definitions behind that.
I will be happy to talk about those, but the short answer, which I'm never good at giving the short answer. Yeah, no problem. The short answer is that you can define it. We have defaults that I think make sense for a dental laboratory, but you can define it. There's a little bit of an art to it. And it really does depend on the nature of your business, but the tool is configurable to say, if a customer hasn't sent me a case in 30 days, I'm going to consider them lost. Or you can change what that number is, and so it can be adapted to your business.
So time and or, like you had earlier, you had 10 cases was a
stable
new customer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Change those to
Exactly. And then there's this group of customers that are kind of coming and going, right? I think there's a lot of opportunity there because they're obviously, I call them dabblers. They're obviously tagging along for some reason. They trust you enough to keep coming back, but they're not fully in. And what is it that is making that happen? And it's really helpful to see how many customers are in that boat and treating them as opportunity and seeing how can we go deeper with these customers. By the way, feel free to jump in with questions. I much prefer it to be interactive. Okay, so we're analyzing the customers for you. We're looking at the sales data in real time, near real time, all the time. So this idea of we're sending a report out to someone and it being out of date almost instantly is not an issue here. Okay, we're helping your team understand the customer situation in a few seconds. So even if that customer just calls in, you can pull them up and I'll show you how you can understand what's going on with that customer. And then making sure that they have all the information, the full context to have the right conversation with that customer. Look, most of your systems today, I know firsthand have all the information in them. And that's the reason that Icortica actually pulls its information from those systems, but they're more designed to get your case from in the door to out the door and invoiced, right? And maybe even collected on. But that's it. That's really what they're very focused on. They're not typically designed around the sales process, the customer experience process. And so this is the layer that Icortica adds onto it. It does not really try to overlap much with your production management system at all. So we provide you with these classifications for the customer, and we, in the same way that a lost customer or the customer journey is configurable, most of these metrics here are highly configurable. So here we see that a customer is at this stage called customer, okay? It's a pretty obvious title, but this journey stage actually models the way I think about it is actually kind of like a dating relationship. So when you have a customer in the new stage, you might say, okay, I'm going to consider my customers new for the first 60 days. That is my sort of period of the onboarding process. I might treat them differently. I definitely should treat them differently than I do when they're past that period. That onboarding process is a very specific process. Then they go into customer, then they go into lost, right? If they're not doing business with you. And every customer pretty much over a short period of time or a long period of time goes through that journey. Then they might come back. They go into newly recovered, and then they can go into recovered customer. Now, why does that matter? Well, recovered customer, as a sign that maybe there was a scar in the relationship, right? Maybe there was something in the past that happened that you want to know about when you when you're talking to that customer. So we mark these customer journeys in a way that you can quickly see what's going on. We also have the health of the customer, which is indicating that their current buying behavior is similar to what it was in the past. It's not just a strict percentage difference. It's looking at a statistical analysis of what's normal for this customer. Their size and their lifetime sales is also here. We also find insights to indicate where the cross-sell or upsell opportunities might be. And so we'll identify them and we'll quantify them. We'll look at the behaviors of your other customers. So for example, if you say, I want to cross-sell from Crown and Bridge to implants. We'll look at all the customers that buy both of those from you, look at the ratio of sales between those two groups, and identify, okay, now let's look at a customer who's not buying implants from you, but is buying Crown and Bridge. We can easily calculate what the opportunity size is there and present that right on the screen here. We give tools to the reps to be able to say, to either customer service or sales reps, to be able to say whether that's a legitimate opportunity after talking to the customer, or yeah, that's not really going to work in this particular situation. And then we give you the sales context. So here's a quick example of it in action. So here on the left, we've got the contact details. We could quickly pull that up. We can filter by any of these statuses here. So we can look for customers that match certain criteria based on their health, based on their journey stage, and quickly investigate what is going on. Reps can use this to define their maybe their travel list based on the list of customers that they come up with here. And here is, forgive me, I'm trying to navigate this video here. So here's where we can filter on the different classifications of the customer. So we can find customers that are healthy, growing, or shrinking. You can exclude lost, maybe that's not a group of people that you want to go after right now, or you can be on a different program where you're only looking at lost customers and going through a recovery program. You can find customers that match these journey stages. This is like the dating relationship I was talking about, and then the relative size. And I think these are all very interesting because actually very small customers may just be very small with you and might be an opportunity to move up this list. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you just want to focus on these big ones, because there could be some interesting ones down toward the bottom. All right. The other thing we do is who records notes from your conversations with customers in your system today? You do? Okay, awesome. We have a system that goes through and evaluates the sentiment in each of those notes, and it'll put an orange flag in this case to indicate that the customer might be frustrated, and it is highlighting this for you so that I've been in this situation where maybe I've called a customer not knowing that there was something going on here, and you want to talk to them about one thing and you get hit on the side of the head by them saying, what about my problem? And this is designed to help you kind of see that before you make that phone call, and it puts the flag, and you can filter on that just so that you don't it can get lost very easily in the notes if you are just depending on having to read it all. This is the onboarding chart that we use. This is, I think, one of the most powerful tools that we have for really preserving that relationship with the customer. What you're seeing here is the quarters across the bottom, and you can change this to be on whatever time scale you want. The quarters across the bottom, and how many customers have sent you only one case. So in this example, Q3 of 2022, there were 92 new customers acquired in this business. About 20 of them have only sent one case. Okay, 15 of them have only sent 2 cases. 6 of them have only sent 3 cases, and so on. So about 50% have not made it past the 3 case mark. These are all customers, these are all people who've taken the leap to do step one, but there's so much opportunity here to harvest and to make that 5% difference in your retention is all right here in the upfront part of the process. And with this tool, what you can do is, let me just jump forward. So this is how many orders they've sent or how many cases they've sent. And you can click on any one of these bars and then see the detail down below for who makes up those customers. So you can have a really good management process on this. You can bring this down to the scale of just weeks. Here I'm showing quarterly, which is a little bit overwhelming for this, but if you have someone that's responsible for onboarding these customers, maybe a customer service person, who can help to have those conversations maybe one every week with each customer for the first few weeks, that could make a tremendous impact on your retention number. Okay, so that is it for the demonstration. I think we have a couple minutes for questions. That's my contact information if anyone wants to chat with me, and I'm happy to answer some questions here.